Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Atlas podcast. I'm your host, Coach Atlas. And today I want to walk you through what's called the emotional cycle of change. I came across this graph many years ago, and this really kind of took me aback a bit simply because of how simple it is in helping us understand our journey to success and the natural expectations that we can have through that process. Now, how I want to relate this uh, emotional cycle of change is I want to utilize it in the form of relationships. So, when it comes to brand new relationships, long standing relationships, the dating world, and so on, like how does this emotional cycle of change apply? And how does the understanding of it help us identify maybe where we're at right now in our relationship? And how do we find ourselves bridging the gap from where we are to the success and fulfillment that a relationship can offer? So before we get into the call, let's just take a deep breath together. It's not a call of this podcast. Sorry, I'm used to coaching. Let's just take a deep breath together. In through the nose, longer exhale out the mouth. Let's just do one more. That felt nice. One more. Longer exhale. So, the emotional cycle of change. Anytime we start off in a new venture, whether it's a new business idea or a new friendship, a dog, a baby, a new relationship, we get into what's called uninformed optimism. Essentially, meaning we don't have all the information yet on what this is going to take, and we don't really care. Right? We're just optimistic about it. We're excited. It feels good in our system. We know that there's a lot of energy to offer whatever it is that we're taking on, and that feels really good, right? Because there's not a lot of weight to it. It's like, ooh, look at all this fluff, this beauty, this excitement. I love this. I feel really good about this. When we're meeting somebody new, this is similar to the honeymoon stage, right? This idea that everything is rose colored glasses, there's so much optimism, and our body is really producing the chemicals that reinforce this idea of uninformed optimism. We don't really know yet, and our body doesn't know yet what it's going to look like to be with this person, but we know that our body is designed to create chemical reactions in order to reassure us or reinforce the necessity of being with somebody. Right? We are relational beings. So this uninformed optimism is loud. We love this stage. This is everybody's favorite stage. For an idea creator, somebody who is so good at ideas, this is where they live. And this is actually as far as they go down this grid. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but if you're in a place to do so, I encourage you to follow along. Just Google the emotional cycle of change, and this will give you a graph that essentially looks like the letter U. And so we start up at the very top, very optimistic, but yet still very uninformed. We don't know yet what this is going to take. Then we move down to stage two through the cycle of change or the cycle of growth or the cycle of success, whatever you want to call it, where we get to what's called informed pessimism. Now, this is the stage where we've started to learn and identify and recognize what this is going to start to look like, what this is going to ask of us, what it's going to take from us. And that optimism has slowly but surely gotten less and less and less. And now we're in a bit of the stage of, I don't really like how hard this is. I didn't see this coming. I didn't know this is how this person behaves. Oh, I didn't know this is some of the things they're carrying with them. Oh, I didn't know that this dog would poo all over and pee all over my house. I didn't know that this baby would never sleep. Or I just didn't know what that would actually look like. Prior to that, I may have convinced myself that it's going to all be good. That I got this. If they wake up in the middle of the night, no worries. I'm tough. I won't be that tired. If the dog poos, it's okay. We got this. We'll replace it. And then you get to this again, level two, where those things actually start to happen. you actually start to be in the experience of these things, and you start to feel or notice a little bit more pessimistic approaches, a little bit more bitey behavior, a little bit more snappiness, maybe a little bit more conflict with whatever it is you're venturing into or who you're venturing into it with. So, uninformed optimism, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. Stage two, a lot less energy, still in there, still chipping away a little bit, but maybe not as quality of a product or quality of experience. And then we get to the stage three, which is the bottom of the U, which is called the Valley of Despair, also referred to as crisis of meaning. This is where most of us bow out. This is where a lot of us quit. This is where we give in, we give up, we don't continue down the journey, we don't continue putting in effort. We've come to this pinnacle point where you either stick with it and push through or you pull out. And this is true for every single thing that we do. This is true for any business we run. This is true for the most successful companies, right? You think about all the stories of people who have been in here. I think one of the loudest ones that I've ever come across would be J.K. Rowling and the Harry Potter series, and just the length of time that they spent in the valley of despair, always available to quit, always available to give in, never did, pushed through anyway, and found one of the most successful series and books and movie series to ever exist. So the Valley of Despair is such a difficult time. It's such a difficult place to be. And yet it is a natural part of the process. And that's really something that I think I wanted to share and drill in this episode is getting to the Valley of Despair is normal, is expected, is, like I said, a part of the process. It's a part of the journey. It's not the journey, it's part of the journey. And so if you're looking to create, an incredible relationship and you just met and everything was awesome and you really enjoyed who they were showing you they were and they enjoyed who you were showing them that you are, and then time started to pass and you started to notice quirks and things that you're like, what the, and you're like, oh, we fight about this and we can't seem to get over that, and things got really difficult and you started to really understand the dance of your relationship, right? Your tango. Are you stepping on each other's feet all the time? Probably, right? Are you bumping shoulders by accident? We're not sure who's leading and who's following sometimes. It becomes a bit of a mess until you get to this valley of despair. And this is where your mind starts to create scenarios where it says, well, maybe with a different person, or I don't know why it has to be this hard, or God, this is really difficult. Am I really in? Or this is where a lot of affairs will happen. This is where a lot of divorce will happen. People will get to this place of despair. And because they don't have the tools and the development to deal with this arena, they give in, they bow out. They don't continue the journey or the fight. I know in a lot of scenarios it's appropriate, but where I'm leaning the conversation towards is, what do we need to discover or learn or develop in the valley of despair so that we can actually move up the scale, back towards optimism, back towards excitement, back towards our journey that we took initially, which is towards success and fulfillment. So when it comes to the relationship dynamic, right, things get really difficult, things get tense, lots more conflict than we expected. This is an example of eventually reaching the post honeymoon, post maybe move in phase where things have just gotten difficult and you don't really know how to handle it. And a lot of it has to do with the way our body feels, less about our communication or the things that we are or not saying, because all of that is controlled by our body. We haven't been here before. We don't know what this means. We don't know what this looks like. If we have been here, we have likely stepped out because we didn't know what this was going to look like or how to do it. That relates heavily to me. My experience in relationships in the past, I would reach a valley of despair and I would do one of two things. I would find another person to be uninformed but optimistic about, and I would leave the relationship, or I would stay a really long time in the valley of despair and eventually find something that was more optimistic, but I was uninformed about. But no matter what relationship I've been in, no matter how long they've lasted, there's always a pinnacle point, which is the valley of despair. And so again, this is the TSN turning point, if you will, right? This is the key to our development. This is where so much expansion comes from, so much growth comes from. Now, again, we have a choice here. We can either choose to find what we need, to learn what we need, to start to move up into stage 4, which is informed optimism, right? So we've gone from informed pessimism to valley of despair to informed optimism. And that's that turning point, that upward trajectory where we start to recognize, I know what this is going to take now. I may not have all the answers, but I like the results we're starting to get now. I like where we're going here. I'm enjoying it a lot more. And I'm more optimistic about our future, which leads to number 5, which is success and fulfillment. So this, again, U trajectory, if you're looking at the grid, if not, just imagine the U shape: uninformed optimism, informed pessimism, valley of despair, up to informed optimism, up to success and fulfillment. And so in a relationship dynamic, this is the natural flow that we take at the beginning, where we go through about 6 months to a year of that uninformed optimism, learning as we go, into informed pessimism, right? Which is like, wait, who is this person? Wait, what? You do this? What? How is this working like this? Why are we fighting about this? How come we can't get over that? How come we have different views about this? You fill in the blank. Then you get to reach the valley of despair, where are we in or are we out? And that can be a really difficult stage. And again, a lot of people bow out. A lot of people give in. They choose to leave. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment towards that. But what I'm starting to notice is the simple reality of my past, and now a lot of people's pasts, is that the only reason, or one of the loudest reasons, why we don't continue on towards success and fulfillment when we're in the valley of despair is simply a lack of development. We don't have the skills yet. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the developmental abilities to get through this moment. And a lot of the content that you'll see is actually in those moments, they're telling you to leave. They're telling you it's not worth it. They're telling you that this is just not the right one, that it should be easier than this. But the reality of the emotional cycle of change, as I've experienced it and as I continue to experience with my clients, is that it's a natural part of the process, that it will eventually get a lot harder than what it was at the beginning. And so, what do we do in the moments where we are being challenged to grow, challenged to expand, challenged to be something bigger and better and stronger and wiser and deeper than we were prior to this valley of despair, prior to this crisis of meaning? So, what I also want to add here is that the emotional cycle of change goes through its natural process at the beginning. It will also happen again in other micro moments throughout the relationship in less maybe important or impactful ways. And now, how this can maybe show up is post affair or post cheating, where we have this renewed vow, this renewed commitment, this renewed energy, right? Of like, wow, like we just went through that, but they're just loving me. Everything is going awesome. I love this reconnection we have now. I don't love what just happened. I don't love where it came from, but there's a lot of optimism about this, right? But it's still very uninformed because we're still lacking ability, we're still lacking the skill, and we're still lacking the capacity to hold, but also to grieve. So then we get into the informed pessimism, which is, how long can I keep this energy up for? Right? How long can I hold this energy that I'm giving and that I'm receiving? Because we all have a threshold there. We all have our own bucket that once it's full, it's full, or once it's empty, it's empty. And so we end up finding ourselves back into a small valley of despair where, like, holy, like, you're just not showing me the same energy you did when you first made that mistake. And so what are we even doing here? And the other person is saying, yeah, I've given, I've given, and I'm tired right now, and I'm not cheating anymore, and everything has changed, and we're in a different place. But man, like I can't hold that energy. And that's because that energy was false. It wasn't embodied. It wasn't paced. It wasn't consistent from the sense of giving and also refilling. And so we find ourselves back in the same position. And I come back to what I said earlier, which is a lot of the challenges that we find in the relational dynamic is simply a lack of development. Not because we're incapable, but because we suck, because we're shit at relationships. It's simply the nature of being exposed to things we've never been exposed to before, while simultaneously lacking the knowledge or the physical ability to hold that feeling, and then the skills and the tools necessary to get us to the other side. That's all it is. No, I say that's all. That is work. That's a challenge. But that is what I believe to be the major cause of a lot of relationships ending. It's simply a misunderstanding of the experience they're having and a lack of tools to be able to move through it, combined with a lack of the right support systems that know how to support somebody through that, how to increase their capacity, increase their tolerance, while simultaneously providing the right language to use or whatever it is that the tool is. So, the emotional cycle of change, if we can understand this system, then we can better understand where we're at. So, maybe you have been dating now for about a year and you're noticing you're not as excited as you used to be, and that things are changing slightly and you're not enjoying it as much. Maybe you're not fully pessimistic about it yet, but you're definitely more informed. Now, this isn't to say, hey, good luck, the valley of despair is still on the way, but it is to say, hey, listen, what can you do right now in the form of informed pessimism where you're noticing these things? What is your stepping stone now, right? How can you get ahead of a grand crisis of meaning or a extremely difficult valley of despair, and how do you make it so it's more of a micro one? How do you start to proactively step towards the fire of learning, growing, and developing? Where are your resources to expand the knowledge and wisdom and embodiment, the skills? Expand that right now in preparation for when things get a little bit more difficult still. How do you start to support yourself through that? Again, by getting ahead. So for a lot of people, this can look like marriage prep, right? I am not married myself yet, so I don't know exactly what this looks like, but I do understand the premise and the concept. And marriage prep is essentially having the deeper, more meaningful conversations that have likely been missed about really important concepts in life, so that when we walk to the other side of marriage, we're not confused as to why we have a completely different vision of what life should look like, right? So we actually don't have such a impactful or detrimental valley of despair that leads to a divorce 1 year down the road. We actually are able to build towards something because we have informed optimism. I know what you're looking for. I know the life you're looking to build, and you know the life I'm looking to build, and we know what that looks like together. So again, if you're an informed pessimism, how do you start to move towards informed optimism? What does that system look like? And do you have a system in place to try to figure that out? If you are in the uninformed optimism, great, no problem. Love that. You're living. You have so much energy right now. You're so excited. Everything is just blissful for you. It's so hilarious sometimes to fully recognize the high of life when you are in that initial stage of discovery with somebody and that initial stage of connection and bonding, because nothing else matters, right? Which is a testament to the statement that the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. That initial stage just is an incredible space for us, right? Because we just don't know anything else about the world other than that it's amazing. Little things don't bother us the same way. But then we get down to the valley of despair, and I don't think there is position more inclined to have us hate or be angry at or be more sensitive to the difficulties of life. And so all we're looking to do here is create awareness for us so that we can take the appropriate steps and know that it's natural to go through these stages, that it's expected to go through these stages, that it doesn't mean anything is inherently wrong, that this is just not meant to be, that this is just not your person or not your business or not your blank. None of that is necessarily true. It can be, but I would challenge the notion that it's unlikely because I don't think that it's the circumstance that is inherently the problem. I think a lot of it is simply our ability to navigate the circumstance, our ability to hold the circumstance emotionally, physically, psychologically. It's our ability to tolerate the experience. Now, tolerate and maybe is the incorrect word there because a lot of relationships out there may have this conversation of I tolerate them. It's not what we're talking about. It's more of your ability to hold the feeling without needing to explode, without reactive, without letting this experience be the deciding factor for whatever decision you make next. Right? It's the ability to see this, to hold this, and to learn from this. The emotional cycle of change. So I'll leave it there. Again, this is based on a time frame. So as time passes, you move through these stages and you go through these optimistic versus pessimistic emotional states. So if we can again describe it a little bit better for ourselves, then we can start to envision what might be needed here and how can I proactively support something like my relationship through the awareness of these stages. You think about a business, right? You think about the process of building a business, so much of that involves proactiveness. And yet in our relationship, we're almost just simply reactive. We just wait. We wait till something causes an issue. We wait until conflict arises. We wait until we have to face that later. We're very unwilling to address the things here, now, and in the moment because it could mean that things end right now. But the truth of what I've experienced is that the quicker you can get to the truth, the better. Because without honesty, there isn't love. The most loving thing that we can do is be honest. And so the emotional cycle of change will help us understand that better. I'll leave that there. I hope this episode was valuable for you, whether it is stepping into a new venture in your life or whether it's stepping into a new relationship in your life. Again, the emotional cycle of change and understanding its ins and outs can be really impactful. That's all for today. Appreciate you listening. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, make sure to give me a rating. I'd love to hear your feedback and experience what you're getting out of this. And I'd also love to know how you're experiencing this podcast and experiencing me. If you're looking to take this work deeper and go through and be supported fully through the emotional cycle of change, I mean, that's ultimately what my work is helping us move through the seasons of our relationship in an effective and productive way so that we can find the success and fulfillment on the other side. If that's you, reach out to me, atlasmecca@gmail.com, or head to the link in my bio and all my socials at the relationship coach _ and book a free call with me. It's an hour. We'll get down to the nitty gritty. I promise you'll leave feeling more inspired, supported, and motivated to take on the work and create the change that's needed for your relationship so that you can start to experience it in the way you want to. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.